Welcome to Gallery B, called Malay Kingdoms. Here you'll see maps, stone and bronze objects, royal seals, spices, ceramics, fabrics, clothes, jewelry, cultural objects, tin money, and weapons. You'll be introduced to Hindu-Buddhist influences in the peninsula and the coming of Islam. This is the entrance to the palace of a Malay Muslim ruler, a sultan. It was in Setul, now called Satun, in the Kingdom of Thailand. It's made of teak wood and is about 140 years old. Notice it's intricately carved with flower motifs. You must bow down when entering the presence of a sultan. This is the reason for the steps going up, then down. Satun is north of the Malaysian west coast state of Kedah, in a strip of land called the Isthmus of Kra, which joins the peninsula with Thailand. If you cut a canal across it, ships connecting Europe and China could save a lot of time, fuel, and distance, like at Suez and Panama. Long ago, during the period of the Hindu-Buddhist empire of Lankasuka, governed from what is now Pattani on the east coast of Thailand, goods were moved on land across the isthmus. This reduced exposure to pirates in the straits and to monsoons in the South China Sea. This is the figurehead on a boat used by the Muslim ruler of the state of Pahang to make trips into the interior on rivers. It depicts a dragon called Naga in Sanskrit and in Malay. Indigenous people called Jakun lived in the jungles of Pahang around a lake called Tasik Chini. They speak of a dragon called Nagaseri Gumum, which lives in the lake. People believed that if the real Naga saw the Naga figurehead, it would not disturb the boat. Local rulers often affix their seals to documents. Here are examples of seals used by rulers in Langkat, now in Indonesia, in Patani, now in Thailand, and in Terengganu and Kelantan in the peninsula. The script is Jawi, an extension of Arabic. The oldest of these seals is dated 1863. Fear of the spirits of wind and of water was common. One protection from such threats was to set up sculpted stone guardians at strategic points. Called Makara, they combine creatures of the sea and land, creatures also believed to be vehicles of the gods. This Makara was found in the Bujang Valley. It has fish scales and the trunk of an elephant. This is a replica of a stone with the inscription Ibnu Sardan, found in the Bujang Valley. It's dated to about 1,200 years ago. It may have marked the grave of an Arab or Persian Muslim scholar, preacher, or trader. Another way to be protected was to appeal for mercy to other powers. Here's an Avalokitesvara, meaning the one who listens and helps. Assessed to be over 1,000 years old, it was dug up in 1936 by a tin dredge in the state of Perak. Later in Gallery C, we'll speak about tin mining and dredges. Avalokitesvara have been found all over Southeast Asia. This one is Hindu-Buddhist. Hindu because of the cast thread over the shoulder and tiger's head on the waist. Buddhist because of the seated Buddha in the headdress and the mudra placements of fingers of the hands, depicting charity, compassion, fearlessness, rescue, and so on. Agastya is another figure found by tin miners, also assessed to be over 1,000 years old. In Hindu mythology, Agastya is a disciple of the god Shiva, but his fame lies in his having sucked the oceans dry to expose demons so that the devas could destroy them. This is why he has a large stomach, and he holds a water bottle, because with it he can create rivers. How the religions of India were adopted by the royal families is poorly understood. What little we know comes mostly from a genealogy ordered to be written by a ruler after the fall of the most famous royal family on the peninsula, the one which ruled Malacca. In the genealogy, it's hard to separate fact from fiction. For example, it includes an account of Singapore being attacked by swordfish and defenders building a below-water fort using trunks of banana trees. But the Hindu roots of the royal families are clear, since Sanskrit, the language of Hinduism, has left its mark on Malay. Even the words for fasting, king, heaven, hell, prayer, and independence are borrowed from Sanskrit. Puasa, Raja, Shurga, Naraka, Sambayang, even Merdeka, which you'll hear about in Gallery D. According to the genealogy, Parameswara, the founder of the Malacca Sultanate, which was famous in the early 16th century as a threat to the profits of Venice, was a Sri Vijayan prince from Palembang in Sumatra. From his name, we may safely infer that Parameswara was Hindu, not Buddhist. Broadly speaking, Hinduism has a pantheon of gods and priests, while Buddhism has no gods and has spiritual readers who teach people how to achieve nirvana, enlightenment. Here's a replica of one panel in the world's largest Buddhist monument, Borobudur, built over 1,000 years ago in the island of Java in Indonesia. Borobudur's 1,460 stone reliefs describe the path to enlightenment, often using Javanese characters and scenes. One of the panels depicts a sailing ship. After studying it, a craftsman produced this scale model of what traders used for their travels. It's called a bahtera. Centuries ago, in Bahtera, traders from this region reached Africa. Let's return to Malacca. According to the most popular legend, Parameswara named the city Malacca because while he was sitting under a Malacca tree, he observed a normally timid mouse deer defying his hunting dogs. He felt it was a spiritually special place, and this, added to its location and geographical features, would make it a great port. In about the year 1400 of the Common Era, he laid the groundwork for making Malacca a great port. He formed alliances with pirates in the straits. They persuaded ships to come to Malacca instead of other ports along the straits. Parameswara established effective government. He ensured that crime was detected and punished, that it was safe to store goods, that customs charges were low and not subject to corruption. He allowed traders to continue practices from their own lands and to use their own languages. He appointed 4 harbor masters, called Shahbandar, one for traders from China, a second for traders from Arabia, Persia, and Gujarat in India, a third for traders from Tamil Nadu, also in India, a fourth for traders from the Philippines and the East Indies, now known as Indonesia. Weapons of that period included keris, a short, wavy-bladed dagger carried in the waistband or belt. The skills of keris makers included the ability to alloy metals and to appease and invoke spirits. A man demonstrated his power by the name of his keris maker, like Gucci for perfumes today or Ferrari for cars. And by the features of his keris, which could include vibrating and warning him of danger. Keris are still important, but only as cultural artifacts in weddings and in ceremonies to invest power in a sultan when he ascends to the throne. Parameswara also cultivated a relationship with China. He traveled to China on one of Admiral Cheng He's ships and paid homage to the emperor. The emperor gave him prestigious symbols of authority, including a formal letter of protection and a special seal. It was said of Malacca that it produced nothing, but everything could be procured there. It was one of the world's best-stocked emporiums, and at its peak, 84 languages were spoken in it. The bulk of the trade was spices. Spices were incredibly expensive and profitable. Pepper was called black gold and was used to pay rent and taxes. Other spices were used to preserve food, even dead bodies. Spices were highly demanded as medicines, even to ward off the plague. To maintain the high prices, Arab traders hid the origin of spices from Europeans. In the 7th century, a Spanish writer wrote that pepper grows on trees guarded by poisonous snakes, and that natives set fire to the trees to harvest pepper, which explains why pepper is black and is expensive. Spices came from the Indonesian islands. Pottery and silks came from China. Much of what we know about the cargoes comes from explorations of shipwrecks. Local goods included tin, rattan, rhinoceros horn, aromatic woods and resins, medicinal roots, and birds' nests. Also, coral, pearls, and tortoise shells. Fabrics came from India. Many of the traders from India and from the Arab lands were Muslims. Soon, many in the region became Muslims. In Malacca, the first ruler to become Muslim was Parameswara's son, Sultan Megat Iskandar Shah. It's said that he was converted through a dream and a visiting Arab teacher. It was customary for the people to follow the religion of the ruler, and so the number of Muslims in Malacca increased, and the local culture began to be infused with practices considered Islamic. Muslim gravestones also began to appear. This one, which is in the Sumatran Achenese style, is way more ornate than the Ibn Sardan stone discussed earlier. Chinese exporters soon began making pottery with Arabic texts for the Muslim market. Here are other examples of Muslim calligraphy, careful weavings and carvings of Quranic texts thought to bring blessings. Malay attire began to take on Arab Muslim features. These garments and ornaments were used on formal occasions. Many Chinese traders in Malacca married local women. They're known as Baba Nyonya, Peranakan, or Straits Chinese. They developed a distinct culture. Here are some examples of the colorful pottery and intricately embroidered clothes and shoes they favored. Their unique cuisine is popular in many restaurants which they operate. Here are some examples of metalware used in the peninsula. This is called tepa sire. It holds betel leaves, together with areca nuts, lime, and some other ingredients, which are rolled together into a quid and chewed. It's a stimulant, like tobacco. It also helps to reduce appetite. After chewing and absorbing the stimulant in the quid, the spent remnant is spit out. The spit is red in color. Early Western observers thought it was blood and concluded that tuberculosis was very common in the peninsula. Tepa sirih are still very important in Malay weddings. Here you see some colorful flat objects mounted on sticks. These are paintings on buffalo hides of characters from the Indian epic poems, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, used by puppeteers called dalang to perform shadow plays called wayang kulit. Wayang for performance and kulit for skin. Wayang kulit evolved into a tool for telling Muslim stories. Here are some examples of molds used to mint coins in the states of Pahang and Terengganu, and also coins from the period. You can see that they were large, heavy, and rough. The Kingdom of Brunei, which lies between the East Malaysian states of Sabah and Sarawak, almost became a part of Malaysia in 1963. We'll discuss this in Gallery D. Brunei is also a Malay kingdom, and here's an example of a cannon which is decorated with, yes, naga. You can also see here a standard unit of volume called a gantang. The Jawi characters on it tell us that it belonged to the government of Brunei and was made in 1892. Here's another unit of measure made out of a coconut shell. It's called a chupa. Sulu is a Malay kingdom which is no more. Here are some objects which used to belong to Sulu. You'll hear about Sulu in Gallery D. These are old maps. Notice that the peninsula is labeled Malacca, for this land was not united under a single government until the Japanese occupation, which lasted from 1941 to 1945. You'll hear about the Japanese occupation at the end of Gallery C. On this map, notice Constantinople. Our story continues in Gallery C with the fall of Christian Constantinople to Muslim invaders. Thank you for your attention.